They said the letter was found by accident, tucked behind the false backing of a dresser drawer, discovered only because the house was being cleared for sale. But nothing about what followed felt accidental. In fact, from the moment that envelope surfaced, everything the town thought it knew began to unravel. For 3 years, the case of Samuel Crowe had been closed, officially ruled a suicide. A respected philanthropist, a powerful real estate magnate, a man whose name was etched on hospital wings and church plaques, the kind of man people stood up for before questions were even asked. His death was mourned with a packed cathedral, polished speeches, and a closed casket no one was allowed to open. And buried beneath all that reverence was a woman no one remembered to ask about. Her name was Elena Brooks. Elena had been Samuel Crowe's personal assistant for 7 years. She scheduled his meetings, handled his private correspondence, and knew the rhythms of his life better than his own family did. But in public, she was invisible, just a quiet woman in the background, spoken over, dismissed, and blamed when things went wrong. When Samuel died, Elena was the first to be questioned and the first to be forgotten. The implication was subtle but clear. She was unstable, emotional, expendable. At the funeral, Elena stood alone in the back row. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just watched as powerful men praised another powerful man, while the truth sat heavy in her chest, unspoken and unwanted. Weeks later, she resigned and disappeared from town. No one wondered why. What the public never knew was that Elena had tried to report Samuel while he was alive. She had gone to the board, to the police, to a lawyer who stopped returning her calls. Each time, she was met with polite smiles and quiet warnings. Samuel Crowe was too important, too generous, too connected, and Elena was just an assistant with no proof. Or so they thought. The letter was dated 6 months before Samuel's death. It was written in his handwriting. The envelope was addressed to no one. Inside, Samuel had confessed, not in a dramatic, remorseful way, but with chilling arrogance. He wrote about manipulating zoning boards, bribing inspectors, silencing a whistleblower with threats disguised as charity. He wrote about Elena too, about how useful she was, how loyal, how no one would ever believe her if she spoke out. And then, near the end, the tone shifted. He wrote that Elena knew more than she should, that she had begun asking questions, that she had stopped smiling. He admitted he was afraid, not of the law, but of exposure, of losing control, of a woman he believed he had broken, quietly rebuilding herself in the shadows. The final paragraph was brief. "If anything happens to me," he wrote, "look at her first. They always will." The letter was immediately handed over to police, and suddenly a closed case cracked wide open. Detectives re-examined the scene of Samuel's death.
The locked office, the overturned chair, the missing security footage that had been brushed aside as a system failure. They found inconsistencies. Small things at first. A glass wiped too clean. A medication dosage that didn't match his prescription. A timeline that relied heavily on statements from men who owed Samuel. Everything. Then they found Elena. She was living 2 states away, working under a different name, quietly volunteering at a legal aid clinic. When detectives contacted her, she didn't run. She didn't deny anything. She simply said she had been waiting. Elena handed over a flash drive. On it were copies of emails Samuel thought he'd deleted, audio recordings disguised as meeting notes, bank transfers routed through Shell, charities, and one final file labeled simply, "If I'm gone." In it, Elena explained everything, calmly, methodically. She described years of psychological abuse, threats masked as mentorship, and the moment she realized Samuel was planning to frame her if his empire collapsed. She admitted she had known about the letter. She admitted she had left it behind on purpose. What she did not admit to was killing him. Forensic evidence confirmed it. Samuel Crowe had not taken his own life. He had suffered a fatal heart event, triggered by an unregulated stimulant found in his system. a substance he had been taking secretly to maintain control, stamina, power. A substance he had sourced himself. The irony was brutal. The man who controlled everyone had finally lost control of his own body. The narrative flipped overnight. Headlines changed. Statues were removed. Donations were returned. The same voices that once praised Samuel now scrambled to distance themselves. And Elena Brooks, once dismissed and doubted, became the key witness in one of the largest corruption scandals the town had ever seen. Justice, it seemed, had finally been served. But as the investigation deepened, one final detail emerged. A second letter. This one was not written by Samuel. It was written by Elena, and it had been mailed the morning of his funeral, addressed to someone no one expected, someone who had helped Samuel for years, someone whose name had not yet appeared in the case. And as detectives traced that letter's destination, they realized the truth was even bigger than they thought, because Samuel Crowe was never the top of the pyramid, and Elena Brooks was never just an assistant. The second letter didn't go to a journalist or a judge. It didn't go to the police or the board Samuel Crowe once controlled. It went to a man whose signature had quietly appeared on nearly every decision that protected Samuel for decades. District Attorney Marcus Halley. For 22 years, Halley had built his career on being untouchable. He prosecuted small criminals aggressively, spoke about integrity at fundraisers, and shook Samuel Crowe's hand in public while shielding him in private. When the letter arrived on the morning of the funeral,
Hale didn't open it right away. He already knew who it was from. He had known Elena Brooks far longer than anyone realized. Years earlier, when she had tried to report Samuel the first time, Hale had been the one who smiled gently and told her there wasn't enough evidence. He had been the one who warned her, carefully, that powerful men rarely fall alone. He thought that would be the end of it. The letter proved him wrong. Elena's handwriting was neat, controlled. Nothing like the shaking voice she'd used years ago in his office. She wrote that Samuel was dead, but the system that protected him was still alive. She wrote that the flash drive had already been duplicated and secured with multiple third parties. She wrote that the letter Samuel left behind was only insurance, not the weapon. The weapon, she explained, was timing. Hale didn't sleep that night. By the time investigators connected him to the case, Elena was already 3 steps ahead. Detectives subpoenaed Holly's financial records and found donations rooted through the same shell charities Samuel had used. Emails surfaced showing quiet coordination, strategic delays, evidence misplacements. The town was stunned. The man trusted to represent justice had been guarding corruption from the inside. And still, Hale believed he could survive it. He held a press conference, denied everything, called Elena a disgruntled former employee seeking attention. He expected the public to believe him. After all, they always had. Then Elena released the final recording. It was a phone call. Holly's voice was unmistakable, calm, confident, advising Samuel on how to handle Elena if she became a liability, advising him to let fear do the work. The silence after the recording ended was deafening. Hale resigned within hours. Charges followed days later. The power structure collapsed in on itself, exposing judges, council members, executives who had all relied on one assumption, that Elena Brooks would never be believed. That assumption had been their greatest mistake. Reporters finally asked Elena to speak publicly. She declined. She didn't want the spotlight. She wanted the truth to stand on its own. She said justice wasn't loud. It was patient. The town tried to rebuild its image, but the damage lingered. Every plaque with Samuel's name was removed. Every program he funded was audited, and every official who had left. Elena, out of her room, began issuing apologies that came far too late. For a moment, it felt finished. Evil exposed. The underdog vindicated. Justice delivered. But then, 6 weeks later, a federal investigator received an anonymous package. Inside was a third letter, short, precise, written in Elena's handwriting. It contained one sentence and a list of names that extended far beyond the town. The sentence read, "You've only seen what was local." The investigator looked at the names and realized the scope of the case had just doubled, because the corruption Samuel Crow built wasn't confined to one city, and Elena Brooks hadn't dismantled a system. She had only opened the door. Somewhere, Elena watched the news quietly, knowing the next phase was already in motion, because justice had been served. But the reckoning was just beginning.